If you're anything like me, you do wonder whence cometh this level of loathing. Let's talk about it. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast number 328. This is the one about insights into Inosanto Inimicality. As you're logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the broadcast. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the I Love Jeet Kune broadcasts. Okay, so while I love the fact that there's, over on the Inosanto fan page on Facebook, right? They allow only relevant and really only positive stuff, and that's how it should be on a fan page. But that's not the real world, right? There is obviously a place for that, but then there's a place for those who, how should I put this? They appear to have it in for Inosanto, right? And some of them on like a visceral, like vitriolic level. So like I said in the opening, I have long wondered where this level of animosity comes from. Because over the years, I've identified that a lot of people had the same stuff in common, so to speak, right? In other words, when I went out to LA in 83, I was not, well, I traveled internationally. I think there were some guys there some Wing Chun guys there from Mexico. But most of the people I would say were from the States, right? So they didn't travel internationally. But for me, it was a big deal to travel to check out the US martial arts scene. But I would still be in the category of what I call a non-Angelino, right? I'd been a Bruce Lee fan for over 10 years. I'd seen all his movies. I'd started collecting martial arts magazines. This one from March of 1976. This is probably the magazine that subconsciously planted the idea in my head to one day go and meet Dan Inosanto, although I didn't realize that until much later. So, but in any case, like I've said many times before, everything I'd seen, I'd read the Tao, I'd read the Fighting Method book. Everything I'd seen, heard, read pointed to Dan Inosanto as being the guy, as being the successor or inheritor of Bruce Lee's method. So I had no problem signing up for a week of training with him and a week of training with Francis Fong, because my sophisticated plan of action was to spend 2 weeks in the States, train, and go back home. But I fell in love, and so I went back out for a third week, and pretty much after that, I was hooked. Now, I can't remember when my pilgrimages to LA started, but I was definitely back at CMAA. By this time in 84, they had moved home to St. Louis. So I was definitely in St. Louis in 84. And that was the year that Sifu Dan introduced us to Muay Thai. And then I was definitely back in St. Louis in 85. And that was the year when he actually brought Ajahn Chai to St. Louis. Now, I tell you all of this so that I can shock you with this revelation. Way back at the start in 1983, I could have started in JKD, in something labeled JKD training with Larry Hartzell and Tim Tackett, because I don't know if they were there in 82, but in 83, they were on the roster and they were doing JKD training. But I think there was something inside me that said, go to the top. Inosanto is the top guy. These guys trained under Inosanto. So go to him, because you'll get what from him, what these guys probably also got from him, right? So, like I said, it wasn't a very sophisticated plan of action or what have you. But somehow I knew that I didn't want a finished product handed to me. Instinctively, I felt that JKD was something that you ultimately worked out for yourself. That doesn't mean without the benefit of proper qualified instruction. But I guess I theorized that to be like Bruce Lee, you had to do what Bruce Lee had done, which was to train and work things out for yourself. Now, fortunately for us, we had the resource of people who had trained with Bruce Lee. But, and it's a big but, Bruce Lee's writings had also indicated that you shouldn't try to copy anyone else, including him. And that is what accounts for the biggest difference, I think, between all these people who started out in quite a similar manner as did I. And by that, I mean people who came to LA for training from elsewhere. I'd say a huge percentage were Bruce Lee fans who turned to Inosanto, again, because he appeared to be the appointed successor. We had all read that Bruce Lee had 3 assistants and that Inosanto was the one who met him. I think the way it goes, Bruce Lee says he met in the midst of my evolution. And then it goes on to say something about, so when they get together, meaning him and Inosanto and James Lee and Taki Kimura, then they try to get the other 2 to walk the path or something like that, right? So if you spend time, and in the past few days, I have put up articles from that era. If you spend time reading, let me show you some of what I mean. If you spend time reading stuff like these magazines, right? If you, this is Inside Kung Fu, September, October, and November of 1974. Okay. If you read stuff like this, you will find that there's not really a ton of equivocation when it comes to the articles about Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune and what have you. It's pretty much laid out for you that it's not distorted, right? You'll see that nobody's confused about the fact that there is the physical aspect and there's the philosophical nature of the art also. But all that changed, right? So the question is, why? All right, so to the best of my understanding, in the very, very, very early days of Sifu Dan's, not even a seminar career, this is when people started bringing him out to do seminars. So it's not that something had been developed. But they very, very early on came to the realization that we can't do what we do home in LA when we're on the road for seminars. For one, in LA, a lot of the Jeet Kune Do training was experimentation through sparring. You can't do that when there's 100 people in the room. And then if that 100 people in the room, they don't know, they don't have footwork, they don't have a fighting position or what have you, there's no way that you can come in and start talking about you're teaching them Jeet Kune Do, even if you had wanted to. And we know there is the issue of Sifu Dan making the promise not to teach it commercially and what have you. So even if he had wanted to, it would have been a fiasco. So what to do? Well, one thought was we could teach the Filipino martial arts because they have a lot in common. And we could illustrate the commonalities between Filipino martial arts and Jeet Kune Do without breaking that promise or what have you. And like I said, this is in the early days of the seminar thing, right? So it was an innocuous strategy. There was nothing nefarious about it. You'll have people today who said that, who will tell you that, well, he created a new version of what have you. I'm talking in the era of like 1980, 81 or what have you. I don't even think the term Jeet Kune Do concepts had been formed, right? So understand the timeline that I'm talking about here. So it was, the dilemma is that you're known to be Bruce Lee's number one guy, but there's a restriction on what you want to do or are allowed to do when it comes to teaching. But people, what? Because look at me, I went because Dan Inosanto was Bruce Lee's number one guy. But the difference between me and some other people, the irrepressible Bruce Lee fans, when they got to a seminar, and again, when let me see if I can find it and put it up here for you guys. When I went to CMAA in 1983, the flyer that I saw in Black Belt magazine clearly indicated that Dan Inosanto was going to be teaching Filipino Kali. Didn't say anything but that, right? I've shown you guys the ad before. Yeah, there we go. Okay, give me a second. Let me pull it up. Right. CMAA. There we go. All right, check this out. Okay. So it says Dan Inosanto, Kali and Eskrima, Larry Hartzell, and Tim Tackett, Jeet Kune Do. So this is what I was telling you about, right? And I just went with Dan Inosanto and Francis Fong. Okay. So there was no confusion, because there are people who like to say that, oh, well, everybody was confused by Inosanto over what he would be teaching. How can you look at this and say, oh, I am going to spend $400 and I want Jeet Kune Do, so I'm going to go to Dan Inosanto because it says here that he's teaching Kali and Eskrima. So that's definitely what I should do, because I can see it right here. I want Jeet Kune Do. I know who Dan Inosanto is. It says he's teaching Kali and Eskrima, but if I go to him, I'll get Jeet Kune Do. That's how confused I was. Yeah, right. Makes absolutely no sense. And so some of these people appear to have been like personally insulted by the fact that Dan Inosanto was teaching something other than Jeet Kune Do. It's almost as if their belief is this: if you have been graced by Bruce Lee's presence, if you literally touched hands with Bruce Lee, how dare you be a professional martial artist, teach in seminars, and teach something other than what the great Bruce Lee imparted to you? How dare you? So these people seem to have taken it personally. And so we're still talking early 1980s and what have you. Inosanto's seminar career grew, but everybody else's seminar career grew pretty much right alongside his. Paul Vunak, Tackett, Hartzell, Burt Richardson, Cass Magda, Chris Kent, Ted Lukai, everybody was getting a piece of the pie, so to speak, right? So all of that changed, I would say, after about 10 years in the early 1990s. And so now the seminar career is in full bloom. There's a lot of attention, right? You guys might remember, I've told you before, that seminars became such a thing that in the event listings for the martial art magazines, everything changed from tournaments to seminars. That's how impactful the seminar thing was. And so I guess, I mean, I don't know who started it, but I guess there was this idea formed that Bruce Lee's art was in danger of disappearing. So what do we do? Well, if there's somebody out there that we can portray in the martial art magazines as the savior of Jeet Kune, okay? If we can portray somebody who is saving us from this dastardly Dan, okay, who is passing himself off as Bruce Lee's guy, but is not doing the Bruce Lee stuff. If somebody can save us from that, then let's go for it. And that's how it happened. You can look it up yourself. I think it's Black Belt 1990. I forget what month, but I'm pretty sure the headline is something about, is Bruce Lee's art in danger of disappearing or what have you. And then it says that Ted Wong surfaces to rectify the situation and what have you. Now, my belief is that the magazines did this. I don't think that anybody said, you know, okay, yeah, appoint me this and appoint me that. I don't see that. In fact, we were talking about this a few days ago. You know, in Inside Kung Fu, Sifu Dan used to write a column called In the 20th Century. And then when he stopped writing that, another column appeared written by Ted Wong called Classical Jeet Kune, right? Classical as in a work of art, right? Not classical as in traditional or what have you, but a little bit of a misnomer if you listen to what Bruce Lee said about his art and what have you. So that's when that happened. And then that grew into a thing where there was the rounding up of the JKD notables into an organization that we affectionately call the Jeet Kune nucleus and what have you. And then everything just started to spiral, not necessarily out of control, but everything just started to spiral downward from there on. But the insight that I got in recent days is the personal nature that some of these people have towards Inosanto and what he has done. Okay, I had one colleague talk about Ted Wong being the person who, and I'll leave you guys with this because I've been talking too long already. Ted Wong is the one person who understood what Bruce Lee was teaching. And my friend said, I believe that with all my heart, or something like that. And my client, because my clients and I talk about this stuff, and my client said, when I analyze that statement, here's what I see. When he says he believes it with all his heart, what he's actually saying is that it's the feelings that he gets, right? But his brain doesn't actually believe it. So I'm going to leave you guys on that note. Okay, so that's it. You guys let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. That's all I got to say about this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. We're on the road. Let's see who's on here. Tim. Okay, so Tim Becker's on here. Tim, we will see you Friday night. And so we'll probably have to postpone the JKD dialogues until the following Friday, right? Today is a blue day. You know what? Forget that. Let me just see what you guys had to say in the comments and see if I can spend some time with you. Okay, so now I got to scroll. Yes, Bucky, Inimicality is a word. In fact, right, I came up with a saying, right? So, yes, Inimicality is the noun from inimical, and inimical has the same root as the word enmity, right? So here's my new saying, and you guys can use this. I'm creating words, right? You ready? Inimical's gonna inimic. Work that out. Work out what that means. Inimical's gonna inimic, right? Okay. All right. So okay, Richard Burgess says go to all of them and just enjoy yourselves. That's my philosophy, right? There's no successor. Okay. There was confusion. Richard Burgess says there was confusion mainly with seminars. I went to one of his seminars that was advertised as Jeet Kune. We did Kali instead. Well, I know he did more than one seminar, right? My good friend Andy Wilson, he has done a ton of research, and I have to find a folder on my computer. But I went through them myself, and let's say we take 100 seminar listings. Out of 100 seminar listings, there's probably like 5 of them that might have said something about Dan Inosanto teaching Jeet Kune and only Jeet Kune. If it didn't say Jeet Kune at all, it said that he would be teaching Jeet Kune plus this, plus this, plus the next. But I don't know of any seminar where it said Dan Inosanto is going to be teaching nothing but Jeet Kune. Never. But if you have the ad or the listing for that seminar, Mr. Burgess, send it to me. Right. Tim says it was a handful of people. We have to question their comprehension and cognitive abilities. Yeah. I think it's just stubbornness, Tim. That's all it is. It's just stubbornness. It's like I can't bring myself to think differently, right? So it's like I put up a quote about Sifu Dan talking about everybody should have a stand-up game, a ground game, a weapons game, a striking game, all that stuff, right? And because that's true, if you're going to be well-rounded, and because since 1993, the word game has become part of the martial art lexicon. When you say that, everybody understands what you mean. But these people are so stubborn that they have to comment and say, well, it's not a game. Why? Everybody knows what game means in today's martial art lexicon, but you cannot bring yourself to agree with anything. So you have to say it's not a game, as if that was the context, right? So they even make up their own context, right? Mr. Burgess says, who are all these people that have issue with Dan Inosanto? Look around, my friend, look around, right? Okay, all right, so that's James Bishop says, Richard didn't exactly say that it was a Dan Inosanto seminar. I'm not sure what that's in reference to, James, right? Okay, so it was hosted by Scott Shields. All right, so that's a Scott Shields was a Carolina thing, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna leave that there with you guys. Gotta go do stuff. What? He said Kali taught at a seminar. Well, if we're talking about Richard James, I'm pretty sure he's talking about a Dan Inosanto seminar, because I've heard him say that before. But we'll see. Anyhow, all right. So that's it. Carlos, you just came on. Yeah, you came on late. I gotta run. All right. Okay. So you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebels, signing off. We'll talk soon. Take care. More stuff to post.